interdisciplinary theological inquiry, and pastoral ministry. We offer a Catholic chaplaincy certification, and over in just that way, in our, in our School of Business, we offer a lot of construction. We offer a Master of Science in Church Management. So you can kind of think of that as an MBA for theologians. Now, our commitment to theological education unsurprisingly attracts top theologians and religious studies scholars to our faculty. Now, I'm not going to list the library of books and journal articles that they've authored, but I would like to tout a few recent notable accomplishments. First, Dr. Vincent Lloyd in Theology and Religious Studies was recently named a Guggenheim Fellow for the upcoming academic year. Now, as you know, this is a very prestigious award, and we believe Dr. Lloyd is only the second faculty member in the history of Villanova University to receive it. During his Guggenheim Fellowship, Dr. Lloyd will be writing Harold Crew's Contrarian Radical, a biography of one of the forgotten founders of Black studies. Dr. Lloyd is a highly esteemed scholar, and his research focuses on religion, politics, and race, and at Villanova, he serves as director for the Center for Political Theology. Next, Dr. Jesse Cohen, who holds joint appointments in humanities and theology and religious studies, is the most recent recipient of our Veritas Research Award, actually, and the award in this very group. Dr. Cohen is an internationally recognized scholar and has tremendous support from the Templeton Foundation, where he received an almost $4 million grant, the largest ever received in College of Arts and Sciences. He's published numerous books and widely cited articles and explores the area where religion meets science. As the primary investigator on the Templeton grant, Dr. Cohen has supported 17 research projects at 12 different universities. Research fellows on the grant have become published in a dozen books and dozens of articles that will create a new standard in theology for engagement, particularly in sciences. One small measure of the impact of this important project is that several of the fellows have already received jobs, and related to their research, they've been promoted to positions of greater influence if they are in a position at their own institutions. Finally, another notable large grant that started just this year is a $1.25 Lilly Foundation grant to two professors in theology and religious studies, Dr. Christy Lang Harrison and Dr. Timothy Brunk, for their Children, Liturgy, and Ecology project, which will explore the connection between Christian liturgical formation, love for the natural world, and children's lived experience. Again, I am really honored to join our legacy to the strong legacy of HSP and look forward to the fruit of this partnership. I truly hope that you're going to enjoy this well-deserved celebration of the evening. I don't want to get in the way of cake, so let me extend a warm welcome and hope that you enjoy a welcome. Have a great night.
We are grateful for this partnership that is a brand new one, and thank you to Hector Varela Rio, who is a faculty member and is also a representative on the board on behalf of the school. So muchas gracias and thank you. This is truly wonderful, and we share and we celebrate all that you've done. I also want to present at this moment Dr. Kevin Hughes. Would you please stand? And he is the chair of Theology and Religious Studies. And when I wrote and said, would you come? He said, yes, of course I will. So we're so glad to have him here. I also want to present Dr. Fito Madrazo, Program Director of the Religion Division of the Lilly Endowment. Dr. Fito, would you please stand up? He is a partner with us and has been guiding us along the way. And I'm going to introduce the nuts and bolts of the organization. How about that? All right. First of all, I'm Daisy Machado, in case you didn't know. Just in case. All right. I want to ask the students and the faculty of the 35th Hispanic Summer Session to please stand. Faculty and students, let's stand and please. I want to ask the students and faculty of our first cohort of our brand new program, HSP for undergrads, to stand. Are you guys here? I'll be talking more about you later. First cohort, everybody. First cohort. I want to also introduce the two co-leaders of the Through Hispanic Eyes workshop who are here joining us for the anniversary. Would you stand, Dr. Greg Cuellar and Dr. Eduardo Fernandez? I want to ask the representatives of the HSP Alumni Network, please stand. And I'm going to ask two very special people that I love. I don't love all of you, but these are a little bit more. One is called Jorge Rodriguez. The other, I love these two. Okay, maybe even a little more. I don't know. Elizabeth Niang. Elizabeth is right there every step of the way. Isn't that true? Doesn't she love you and show you how much she cares? I tell you, she does things Latinamente, doesn't she? And now let me talk about what I wanted to present to you right now, which is I want to make this announcement. Now, I've been kind of hinting in social media and seeing kind of announcements, something's going to happen, be on the lookout. So let me talk a little bit about what we're going to exactly talk about tonight. In the last decade, but particularly in the last 7 years, the Hispanic Summer Program has experienced tremendous growth. Since 1989, when the HSP first began, it had as its main program the annual summer session, which gathered Latinx seminarians from around the United States to a campus of one of our host schools for 2 weeks of intensive graduate level theological education taught by an all Latinx faculty. And it was the first time it ever happened. First time it ever happened. The summer session is what I like to call the jewel of the HSP, since the space that has been created every summer for the last 35 years has been one not only of learning, but also one of welcome and acceptance for all of our students, both Latinx and non-Latinx. And today, the HSP is still very much a unique program in the world of theological education. In 2016, after attending a meeting in Florida, it was a surprise meeting for me. I kind of went. I didn't even know what was going to happen, but very luckily I met someone from the Latinidad. And we began to talk about the HSP. He says to me, you know, why did you write a letter asking for $50,000? I said, well, a letter to get $50,000? He said, yeah, if you write the right one. Tell me what to do. So I did. I wrote the letter requesting $50,000 for a planning grant that would help the HSP explore, to think about what areas of growth and what expansion in its programming were possible. The grant made it possible for me to, we got the grant in 2017, and the grant made it possible for me to meet with various constituencies of HSP around the United States. I met with alums, I met with pastors, I met with Latina leaders, I met with board members, and I began to explore what they thought could be areas of growth for the HSP, and what kind of program they thought the HSP should begin to think about and to offer to meet the needs of the Latinx theological community. I received a grant in 2017, and again, after the grant was done, I was invited to submit another grant on behalf of the HSP, a little bit more ambitious grant, to Italy based on the findings of the planning grant, which we did in 2020. And I knew that if this grant was funded, we would be forever change the HSP. The HSP would forever change. And indeed, that has been the case. Thanks to the funding received in 2020, the HSP moved from an organization with one part-time director, one part administrator, 2 annual programs, the summer session and Through Hispanic Eyes. We became a program with a full-time executive director, 1 full-time associate director, 1 full-time administrator, and new programming that has slowly made the HSP into a nonprofit with year-round programs that also works with a cohort of part-time master's students who work alongside the directors in an innovative program of leadership and mentoring we call the HSP Fellows. And I'm going to ask those wonderful people to please stand up. Our fellows, please stand so we can see you. Ahí estamos. And there you are. Muchas gracias. They have been so invaluable to us. And this has been a program that has been so exciting, and Jorge has provided tremendous leadership to them. And so it's not only that they work with us, but that we also mentor, and we also move, because that is one of the core values of what the HSP does. So we are now moving in different directions. And I want to say that after the grant in 2022, the Lilly Endowment invited me to submit a second more robust grant. And by the way, we got 1.8 the first time. We submitted a second grant, and I want to say one thing. I know, you guys think, but she forgot. No. I want to thank Jorge not only for all of his hard work, for his attention to detail, for taking that course on spreadsheets, which I know has been very good, but most of all for your willingness to trust my vision. Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias. Upon receipt of the second grant in 2023 for $4.3 million, the HSP has been able to continue to solidify its internal administrative structure and to also expand the programming, which now includes the HSP for Undergrads program that is being done in partnership with the Pasos Network of Schools. And I'm glad, as I told you, they are meeting for the first time during this 35th summer session. Gracias, Armando. Gracias, Claudio. We anticipate 15 undergrads this year, 25 next year, and so on for the next 5 years. Now, the last 7 years have also been one of remarkable growth that have permitted me and the staff to reimagine the HSP as we boldly claim a place for our organization within the landscape of theological education in this country. This growth has also led to a sense that we need to promote a new name that would be more in keeping with the work that the HSP was doing as an organization, since now in 2024, we are much, much more than just a summer program. So after much deliberation, after many conversations, after much thought, the board of the Hispanic Summer Program approved this past October that the Hispanic Summer Program will now be known as the Hispanic Scholars Program. Tomorrow, so get ready. But we wanted to announce that this anniversary, we wanted to announce that this special moment with all of you, nuestro compañero de camino, those who journey with us, so many schools that are represented here, so many folks that are friends that I love deeply, or estudiantes, the faculty, to announce it here. So colleagues and friends, you are now a part of the Hispanic Scholars Program. I want to now move into another part of the program we're going to continue to share with you. We've been talking a lot about the work of theological education. You've heard the dean here at Villanova talk about all the wonderful work that they're doing. And we know that there are different institutions doing all kinds of work. And we want to talk to you about what we do. And we want to talk to you about the context of what we do, which is Latinx theological education, which is a particular context. And so we have tonight 2 speakers that are going to join us to talk about this. And what we want to talk about is not only the trajectory of the HSP, we've been working at this since 1989, and we have had changes in what we do since 2020, the first grant from the league. But now I want us to also think about the context of what we need to do for the future. And we have 2 speakers. One is Dr. Elsie Miranda, who is the Director of Accreditation for the Association of Theological Schools. And she has agreed to come and to join us this evening and to speak about the context of theological education within the context, which is another context, of the Association of Theological Schools. And for those of you who are not familiar with that organization, they are responsible for accrediting our schools so they can become credit-bearing institutions. Elsie was late in her plane, la maleta se le perdió, pero she's here. And so she's here to make a presentation. Muchas gracias, Elsie. Muchas gracias por estar con nosotros. Dr. Elsie Miranda.
to be here with you today and to celebrate this unveiling of your new logo and your new name, your new identity, of being part of this Spanish summer program years ago with Otto Maduro. And I'd like to share a little story with you since it's so contextually appropriate for a moment like today. We were in Mundelein Seminary. There were 80 people who were in the summer program. We had a host of really wonderful scholars. And one morning at breakfast, this student, we'll call him Mario, he was dressed in a lot like me today, actually. He was wearing jeans and a t-shirt, and he walked into the refectory early, was reading his book, and one of the priests came in and said, "Son, get to work." And Mario looked at him and said, "Well, I'm not working here." And he said, "Get back in the kitchen." And Mario said, "Father, I don't work here." So the priest went off and tried to figure out who this brown boy in jeans and a t-shirt was in his refectory. And when the rest of us came to breakfast, we all heard about it. And it was so painful for these assumptions to disproportionately marginalize our community because we don't look the part. You don't look like a scholar. You don't look like you belong here. You're not in habit. Where do you belong? I don't know if you still do this, but every class had to lead a spiritual program each day of the week. And when my class met, we decided to do an agape, but we didn't realize that it was going to be really hard to buy bread for our agape when we were in Mundelein Seminary in the middle of nowhere, and it was 4th of July weekend. So some of the students had walked to this church, and they hitched a ride back with a family, and the lady said, "Ay, yo te hago el pan, porque niños, ustedes no van a encontrar pan por aquí en ningún sitio." So, they were like, "Oh, this is great. We're going to get freshly baked bread, without leaven for our agape service." And when the day came for the bread to arrive, she made a sheet cake that was about 2 by 3, it seemed like a poster board of bread stored. And there weren't that many of us to share this bread during the agape. So we took all the leftover bread and we offered it to all the priests and nuns that were in the refectory for lunch. And Mario said to the priest who had told him he didn't belong, "Father, I want to share this bread with you." Fruit of the vine in many ways, right? This is our body. And that was such a transformative moment. But I share that story with you because Hispanic Scholars Program has the capacity to Latinamente really revitalize what it means for us to be the body of Christ. Really transform the consciousness of people who think that the body and those who partake and belong have to look a particular way. And in the context of theological education in North America, that shift is happening. The MDiv program is in decline. What's fascinating is that not only is the MA professional degree growing, but so are non-degree programs in graduate theology schools, which is conflicting a bit the dynamic of ATS and how we understand ourselves, because we don't accredit graduate degree programs. But it's making us ask questions because the community and the people who we serve are forcing us to reconsider the paradigms in which we exercise our scholarly endeavor. And it's thrilling to see so many of you really reimagining what it is that you can do with a theology degree. How do you serve the community of Christ in ways that we had never conceived of before? You know, people used to think, well, you know, do you want to be a pastor? No, not in that way. But yes, I want to shepherd. Yes, I want to lead. Latinamente, we have come to reconstruct who we are. Because we are a we in a world of individualism. We are a we in a world that wants to focus on the I. And I ask the question, who are we to you? As people of faith, in the complexity of our Latinidad, who are we in our values and cultures and the things that we commit to? Because we are people on the move, we are Exodus people, we are people of encounter who have experienced marginalization and oppression. But how do we take our experiences in a way that take the redemptive route, to take the transformative route, to take the transformation of consciousness route? Who are we to recognize that from the oppression of colonization and the different forms of mestizaje, here we are. Here we are anew. Not to harbor the pains of the past, but to recognize that they exist and to transform the direction in which we're going. How do we Latinamente sing our songs, share our food, live the joy and the struggle for the sake of a greater good, for the sake of the hope for new tomorrows, for people who didn't get a chance, for our parents, for our grandparents, on the shoulders of those on whom we can stand here to celebrate this moment, to celebrate the support of organizations like Lily, who recognize that there's a gift here that needs to be broken open. And in the complexity of our identities, I'd like to remind us, you know, that in Isaiah, when the angels calls out, you know, and he says, "Here I am, Lord," that our response as Latinos and Latinas is more a "here I am" than an "I am here." The individual world wants to say, I am here. But no, we are people situated in a time and place that need to say, here I am. Here I am for you. Here I am for us. Here I am for me. And where do I go from here? Where do we go from here? And Hospital Ospino likes to talk a lot about our Hispanic ministry programs around the U.S. As opportunities for he says, gente puente. You know, to examine how our community, in our scholarship, in our ministry, in our witness, are bridge builders. And I've thought a lot about that, and I thought, you know, we're bridge builders in so many ways, but we also need to recognize that our language and the complexity of our language and our identities also need to be bridge builders. But what are we building the bridge for and towards? And this community has so much power because so many of you, so many of us are bilingual. We speak the language of empire and we speak the language of barrio. And that comes with a huge responsibility because we can never forget the barrio when we speak to the empire. But we must speak to the empire with faith and dignity and conviction and not cower because we're not the right color or we didn't quite fit the expectation of those in power. Show up Be proud of who you are. Recognize that we are indeed gente puente that speaks to both sides of the bridge to build a better tomorrow. Blessings and all the best.
So much to think about, right? And I'm especially glad to know that Elsie has also been part of the HSP. So we continue to see the reach of the program. One of the projects that the First League Grant helped the HSP to fund was a longitudinal study. And the longitudinal study was carried out all of last year under the leadership of Latinx sociologist of religion, Jonathan Calvillo. This is the first longitudinal study done by the HSP in its history. So we are eager to receive the final report that will come to us in a few months, and then be able to share the report more broadly. Unfortunately, Dr. Calvillo was not able to join us tonight, but I'm going to invite the HSP Associate Director, Dr. Jorge Rodriguez, to come forward, and he will share with us some slides that Dr. Calvillo sent him, and also give us an overview of some of the findings of Calvillo's research, but at the same time continue to do what Dr. Miranda did, continue to do and talk about the context of the HSP as gente puente who do theology latinamente.
It's a pleasure to be with you all. I'm very grateful to be here right now. So much like Dr. Miranda, because I think that this is what it means to do theology latinamente, I'm going to start with the story as well. So in June of 2015, I found myself for the first time on the campus of Candler School of Theology at Emory University in Atlanta. I remember distinctly walking from the dorm room down the hill to the School of Theology, where I took a class on earth ethics with the incredible Dr. Teresa Delgado, who has taught many times at HSP, and at the time was a professor at Iona College. I was, in some ways, completely different then. I had just finished my first year at Union Theological Seminary, where I was pursuing my master's in theology. I had come from an evangelical college prior to attending Union, so that was a whirlwind. I knew I wanted to pursue a PhD, but I was discerning what I would study. This is important when I had a full set of hair, by which I mean I was aggressively balding, but I was so in denial. And I was a social media intern for the Hispanic summer program, taking pictures and posting things on Twitter as a good millennial does. I posted these pictures from my 2015. It took me a while to find them. You'll see Dr. Claudio there with darker hair. And you'll see me with the illusion of hair. So in this context of curiosity, transformation, discernment, and healing, I found myself in an Earth Ethics class with Dr. Delgado and 8 other Latinx master students from a completely different walk of life than me. An evangelical from Fuller Theological Seminary who wanted to be a pastor, a practitioner of Santeria from Vanderbilt Divinity School, a Pentecostal from Fresno Pacific, a Catholic from Oberlin School of Theology, the list goes on. All of us in a room asking how we, in our various contexts, might respond to a world that was literally on fire. A government that continues seeing our communities as defective at best and parasites at worst, and institutions that often struggle to incorporate our stories, let alone our epistemologies, our ways of being, our scholarship, or the sacred oral traditions of our abuelas and tios and familia. And moreover, how do we respond in a way that is informed by the theological and ethical traditions of a community que siempre está en lucha? Well, I could provide story after story about that HSP summer session of Cornell West leading a panel on African American and Latinx solidarity, of the asada that was held in front of our dorm in this little barbecue, this little grill that we brought charcoal, boderos, don't tell Dr. Machado, and other things in front of our dorm room, led by a Mexican priest who's the best dancer I've ever seen in my life. The many nights I stayed up having deep conversations instead of doing homework. I can tell you story after story about that summer session. That HSP summer session, though, led to so many things. So I want to share a little bit about its aftermath. It was at that HSP summer session that I gained a feeling of empowerment in my identity as a Puerto Rican in the US diaspora, an empowerment that led me to write a dissertation on radical diasporicans and their complex relationships with religious institutions. It was at that summer session that I completed the writing sample that I submitted for that PhD program where I wrote that dissertation. It was at that summer session that I went on to work as the research assistant to Dr. Delgado, and she fought for my name to appear on the cover of a Puerto Rican decolonial theology, Prophesy Freedom, a book that still sits on my mommy's bookshelf. It was at that summer session that my career began, thanks to the profound mentorship of one of the most incredible administrators, scholars, and pedagogues in this country, Dr. Elsie Miranda. Eventually, the social media in turn turned into events planner, the events planner turned into grant writer, and the grant writer turned into associate director. It's funny how those things happen, isn't it? That HSP summer session sparked a new way of imagining how institutions, how higher theological education could work if and when it not only centered communities of color, but more importantly, the epistemologies, the ways of thinking that stem from communities of color. But what we have learned is that the transformation I felt is the norm at the HSP historically, not the exception, even if the particularities of that transformation differ from student to student. So in 2023, as Dr. Machado mentioned, Dr. Jonathan Calvillo, Assistant Professor of Latinx Communities at Cameron School of Theology, alongside Research Assistant Jasmine Figueroa, began conducting a longitudinal study of this organization with a particular focus on the impact of our summer session. This unique 2-week program that for 35 consecutive years has been offering classes in Latinx theology, ethics, history, pastoral care, sociology, liturgy, all taught by Latinx faculty to a Latinx majority classroom. Since last year, Jasmine and Dr. Calvillo have conducted surveys and interviews with dozens of HSP alumni dating back to 1989 when the program started, and have taken a deep dive into the archive to examine the impact of the organization. Even though they couldn't be here tonight, as Dr. Machado mentioned, I'm happy to share their research on their behalf. Because you see, through this exploration, they uncovered 4 themes that were highlighted by those alumni who have partaken in the organization's flagship program. Themes that, as an alumni myself, don't surprise me, but certainly make me proud. First is the theme of ecumenism, a very difficult word to say, that in recent years has turned into an intentional interreligious engagement. Since 1989, students have articulated that the HSP was the first time they ever experienced such a diversity within Christianity, let alone across faith traditions. One alumni from the 1990s stated, quote, "I saw at HSP how everyone can think and theologize openly with different thoughts that others have. There was no sectarianism and things to defend. We shared in break times and conversed at the library and in groups while doing work." This experience led that specific student to return next year. It's no surprise then that this profound sense of ecumenism and increasingly interreligious engagement led many alumni to reflect on the unique chapels that took place in the center of the program, a space of, as Jonathan and Jasmine articulated in their study, transformational worship. Alumni share that the HSP chapel has been a space of joyous experimentation that contributed to a feeling of freedom. And that freedom facilitated a depth and affect, by which I mean a feeling in our lived embodied realities that we're connected to something beyond ourselves. One alumni from the 2010s shared that the summer they attended was a summer that in Trump's administration, children were being placed in cages at the US-Mexico border. Many of you probably remember those stories. And a chapel that was focused on this reality led the students to reflect, quote, that this was the only space where I could lament publicly. Worship felt different to me. not as rehearsed or polished. It was a space we could be ourselves. This is a theme we hear over and over again, year after year at the HSP. At the HSP, I can be myself. And what alumni have often meant by this is that this is a space where they can ask difficult questions, messy questions, questions about identity, community, trauma, radical hope, and possibility, without concern that they were going to be perceived as less serious academics, as those who are on the margin, as special topics in theology. No, at the HSP, they can ask preguntas de vida, questions of life, that feel ethically informed. Of course, then the third theme that's emerging in this longitudinal study is that of vocational clarity. At the HSP, students were able to ask critical questions about their own path because they were allowed to ask questions that were contextually grounded and theologically assessed. Moreover, they were surrounded by mentors they could never access at their home institution. It is here that students often engage their first PhD holding Latino, Latina, Latine, and suddenly a whole world of possibility opens up for them. Because as we often say, while resources are often a barrier to student success, and it certainly is, what we realize is that another barrier in our communities is imagination. Our community can only go as far as we can imagine, and HSP cultivates imagination through our professors, through our classrooms, through the ways of thinking where we center in everything we do the Latinx community. And this is especially true for our Latinas. To this point, one alumni from the 2000s shared that at the time of their attending the HSP summer session, Otto Maduro was the director. And I heard a lot of noise from my denomination about women leaders. It was in that context that Otto told me that women will always have a place, and you will always be supported. And your calling will never be questioned. Imagine what that does to a student. A student who perhaps feels like they don't belong in any other institution they are part of. Imagine what it does to them to be told by the director of a program lead by a preeminent scholar of the Americas and the world, your calling will never be questioned. Which leads to the final theme emerging in Jonathan and Jasmine's study. That at the HSP, students explore for the first time the fullness of Latina and Latinx realities and identities, and the realities that are produced in our community therein. This manifests in two ways. First, students explore at the HSP the diversity of Latinx community through a spectrum of theological positions, gender and sexual identities, academic institutions, countries of origin, immigration, and diaspora narratives, and the list goes on. At the HSP, a big tent can exist and is intentionally cultivated precisely because we are clear that the central pole of this tent is the Latinx community and all its diversity. In a world that tries to create a monolith for our gente, the HSP instead critically cultivates an exploration of what it means to celebrate the fullness of our diversity and what it means to still be in community across that diversity. But second, this is not diversity for diversity's sake, no. As a student from the 2010s shared, at the HSP they engaged the range and history of, quote, Latinx perspectives on religion and theology, grounded in social justice, where theologians and faith leaders were affecting change. The diversity cultivated here is to ask how we will choose to situate our struggle and whom we will accompany. Gente fuerte. Which allowed, to quote Jonathan Calvillo, the tagline of, quote, doing theology Latinamente, to become an important kind of affirmation. Students felt that they belonged in the academy and that their communities could be represented in the academy. That is to say, that the HSP students were learning to do theology for themselves, and not merely to learn about what others have done. And here I will conclude. These four themes that have emerged from the longitudinal study, the cultivation of ecumenism and increasingly interreligious engagement, the unique space of chapel as a site of freedom-making, the space to develop vocational clarity, and four, the space to engage the full diversity of Latinx community. All of those themes gesture towards the HSP as a site of radical transformation, grounded in a commitment to communities in lucha, communities that live, laugh, love, struggle. Les ponen pilas cada día, as my Mexicans remind me to say, for the sake of building a world that is more free, more loving, more accepting, and more understanding. Indeed, to offer an interpretive lens to my colleagues' sociological analysis. To say that the story being revealed of the Hispanic Summer Program, now the Hispanic Scholars Program, through this longitudinal study, is a story just of Latinos in theological education, would be to miss a greater implication. In a world that is facing extreme polarization, the HSP cultivates community across difference. In a world that continues to disempower those on the underside, the HSP cultivates a space of life-giving empowerment. In a world facing climate change, genocide, feminicide, war, famine, the killing and bullying of queer, especially trans youth of color, all of which are symptoms of the ongoing ways the history of colonialism haunts every aspect of life. In that context, the HSP is providing a critical analysis of this world, the tools to respond to it, and most importantly, the imagination to say another world is not only possible, another world is at hand. In our communities, in our classrooms, in our chapels, and even in our dining room tables. The HSP centers the Latinx community, yes, but what we offer is a model for how we can be contextually grounded and yield lessons for how we can all be free. I'm grateful to Dr. Calvillo and Jasmine for putting into words what I have experienced since 2015, that the HSP is a place where we seek radical possibility in a world that is not perfect, but one which we can collectively make a little more free. And if this study just focuses on one flagship program that occurs for only 2 weeks every June, imagine what the Hispanic Scholars Program can do, and already does, through multiple annual programs from January through December. Thank you for being with us to celebrate and imagine what it means to do theology Latinidad.
I know how to pick them, huh? Outstanding. What a wonderful presentation. We are truly very excited about the longitudinal study, and we are looking forward to receiving it and being able to disseminate and to share the information that we learned from this year-long study. And thank you to Jorge for giving it a context, for putting it and making it personal, and speaking about it in a way that I'm sure many of you can connect with. I want to now provide you with another announcement, another sharing of information about something that the Hispanic Scholars Program is about to launch. And I want to begin by giving you some context as we make this public launch of a new and exciting writing project that we are calling Latinidad in the context of theological education. We wanted to launch and announce this project as part of the HSP 35th anniversary because it showcases the HSP's potential to contribute to and to expand the conversations about Latinx theology. With this project, we also seek to engage a new audience of Latinx seminarians and younger Latinx scholars who will lead the charge into the future of our communities, of our churches, and of our nation. In thinking about this concept, this very core concept of Latinidad, I ran across an article in The Nation, which appeared a few years ago, and it caught my eye because of what it was talking about and how it was talking about Latinidad. The journalist was Miguel Salazar, and he interviewed a cohort of younger Latinx activists, other journalists, community organizers, some of them from indigenous and African roots, who were very clear that they rejected and hated the term Latinidad. So it caught my eye. And among the reasons that those interviewed gave for their rejection was, they said, that as a category, they thought that the term Latinidad seeks to create a single identity of who Latinx people are, and even further, they said, the term erases race. They also thought that Latinidad in general doesn't make room to talk about U.S. imperialism, which is a reality and something we need to talk about, because it does not acknowledge the painful history of so many of our communities, both within the U.S. borders, as well as to the south and in the Caribbean. The same folks interviewed in the article spoke about how Latinidad does not consider religions like Santeria or Curanderismo, that the term erases the African reality for Afro-Latinos. There was also a sense among the cohort that those who currently propose to use this concept of Latinidad were those who benefit from the term because, and I'm quoting from the article, they speak proper Spanish and they know their culture and they come from a Christian or Catholic background. The more I read the article, the more I became convinced that not only was our project about Latinidad a timely one, but I was also very sure after reading the article that the HSP's project about Latinidad was not going to follow the normative academic playbook for this project, because as a Latinx scholarly community that values the realities of faith and lived religion as a key component of the Latinx experience in this nation, we have at our disposal a very distinctive toolbox that would give us a very different lens to more critically examine what Latinidad means and how it functions in this society in a whole bunch of different and interesting ways. Which is why when I first began to imagine what this project would be about, and as those ideas were shared with others, I had to talk to Jorge and to other of my colleagues, I began to clearly understand and to believe that from its beginning, this project was indeed going to be sensitive precisely to those themes that the folks who were interviewed in that article have found missing from what is popularly identified as Latinidad. And so, from its inception, our project began with the premise that the Latinx community in the United States is undergoing profound changes. Changes that not only have to do with language or citizenship, education, economic status, but also with the often overlooked realities of race, ethnicity, sexuality and gender, religion and history, as they relate to the Latinx reality in this nation. From its inception, our project was envisioned as one that would create a writing space for essays that would not simply be abstract academic treatises, but would instead be brought to life by the embodied experiences of the writers. In other words, these essays would give voice to the lived reality of our writers, reality shaped by familia, lo cotidiano, la lucha, gender, sexuality, race, class, culture, citizenship, borders, immigration, memory, resistance, hope, and religious experience and faith, which is rarely considered by other writers and journalists and scholars. Even more because our project on Latinidad is focused on theological education and the institutions where this education happens. A desired outcome of the project is the production of new epistemologies, or new ways of thinking about and understanding the Latinx community and its relationship to theological education. We anticipate that the essays in this project will promote a new pedagogy by opening up conversations in the classroom that will be crucial for and in the Latinx context. The HSP Latinidad project wants to engage its readers in what can be called courageous conversations. And they're courageous because this project seeks to question the pedagogy, to question the materials used to teach in the 21st century seminary classroom, so we can help our students to better explore, help our students to better understand, to better respond to the marginalizing and nefarious agendas against brown people that exist in U.S. society today. I am certain that our community of scholars are precisely the ones who can make the HSP project on Latinidad relevant for those within theological education, for institutions and its institutional leaders, as well as for scholars and faculty who share the goal of preparing Latinx leaders for both church and community. And this reality only makes me more certain that our project is both timely and necessary and will become a valued resource for many classrooms upon its publication. While I argue that the Latinx theological scholars are indeed poised to contribute to and broaden as well as deepen the understanding of Latinidad, and while we are excited about the creation of knowledge that will result from these essays, I also want to share the words of cultural theorist Silvio Torres Ayala, who says the following: He cautions us to proceed carefully, lest we make facile assumptions about Latino homogeneity and internal unity. Now, that means that in our project, in our conversations, we are also clear, I am clear, as a Latina, that in our Latinx community, though it is very diverse, where you can find many points of view, which means many points of disagreement, right? And a diversity of thought, the truth is, and we must be honest, that there are many dark corners that also need illumination. That our Latinx community has these corners that need someone to shed a light. That is why we want to encourage the writers who will contribute to this project to engage in conversations about that will indeed be courageous conversations amongst Latinx folks themselves, which is another of the desired outcomes of this project, that I'm very excited about. Conversations about Latinx machismo. Conversations about Latinx xenophobia. Conversations about Latinx negrophobia. Conversations about Latinx classism. Latinx homophobia. Latinx transphobia. In seeking to both encourage conversation about the theological classroom, as well as what is happening in the Latinx community in church, I believe that this HSP project on Latinidad is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. You heard the words that Dr. Miranda said. It's a wonderful opportunity to map our future as Latinx people living in the United States, because I believe, that we as a people can always alter the course of history through our actions. And that we as a people can indeed make our own history. See or no? Yeah. The Latinx community, the Latinx church can indeed be more effective agents of justice. See or no? They can become agents of liberation, of change, of equality, where women no longer have to be told, yeah, we're our nation counts. I remember my ordination in 1981, probably before you were born. When my ordination didn't count. And it is my hope that the work produced by the scholars in this project will provide some impetus to that social change that our community desperately needs. Let me share a little bit of you what this project looks like. Let me go back to the and what are the topics that we're going to include and that we will want to not only produce publicly accessible educational materials for seminaries, divinity school, and religion department classrooms, but we also want to do more, challenge these courageous conversations. The project is very simple. We're going to gather 12 writers, and they're going to work under the guidance and support of two magnificent editors who are here with us tonight, Dr. Maria Villarreal and Dr. Diversities, our two editors for this wonderful volume. And they will work with these writers to produce materials on 4 distinct topics, where they will connect the main topic of Latinidad and theological education. These are the topics. This is really exciting. Really exciting. The first one is on Afro-Latinidad and theological education. While we know and we understand that Latinidad obfuscates blackness within the community, allowing anti-blackness to thrive, the writers of this section will seek to examine how the racial diversity of the Latinx population impacts theological education, especially as institutions consider the nuances of what is called programming for communities of color. Second theme, interreligious and intercultural engagement. Since Latinxes have never been solely Christian, and even among those who are Christian, their religious expression have often called forth indigenous, African, and other religious practices, the question is, how does theological education reckon with the religious diversity in Latinxes? What implications does this hold for how we understand the mission of theological education and the mission of interreligious education? The third topic is an interesting one. Evangelicals, Pentecostals, and nuns. Yes. The rise of evangelicalism and Pentecostalism in the Latinx community has led to a profound demographic shift within Latinx Christian expression. Yet, there has also been a rise in Latinxes who do not identify with any religious tradition. How does theological education then conceive of its mission considering these changes? And how do these realities of social justice and equality intersect with these Latinx who do not necessarily work from a Christian ethical framework? In our fourth section, sexuality, gender, and queerness. The Latinx community is often imagined as conservative. I remember when I first became faculty member of union in a faculty meeting, I said, why don't we have more Latinx students here? We're in New York City. And the faculty member turned around and very seriously, she said, oh, because you guys are so conservative, you won't come to these kind of schools. And I went, what? You guys are so conservative. The Latinx community is often imagined as a conservative community, especially when it comes to issues of sexuality and gender. But the reality is that our community has always been at the vanguard of queering sexuality and gender. Yet these realities have not found their way into the discourse within theological education. And it's our students who clearly express this diversity of expression. So then the question, how do the lived realities of our Latinx community around sexuality, gender, and queerness push theological education to rethink our community? Jorge said it clearly. We are only limited by our imagination. So how can we get theological education and those in it to rethink, reimagine us the way we know we are? Right? And how will we lead this work? Now, as you can see, we have a very exciting agenda before us, and the first gathering of the writers and editors is going to happen in October. We anticipate that this work will be done in conjunto, which is a core value of the HSP, so that the essays will connect to one another. We also anticipate the essays will seek to push theological education to consider the pedagogical, religious, administrative, political implication of each of the topics in the essays as it relates to the Latinx community. And in doing so, we hope that each essay of this collection will explore how the Latinx community has been imagined in theological education and how we should instead be thinking about the U.S. Latinx community and Latinx seminary students in order to promote a theological education that can truly cultivate more effective and better prepared leaders for the 21st century. And I am also, I tell you, this is a night of wonderful news. Get ready for another one. I am also delighted to share that this anthology will be one of 4 books that will be published by Fortress Press as an HSP series to be called Theological Education Latinamente, and thank you, Jorge, for working on that. Our first HSP series. Te digo, estamos smoking, you know? So, I invite each of you, not only to celebrate 35 years of faithful work that has happened, but to step with us into the future of the next 35 years. And we step into that future by launching the HSP Latinidad in the context of theological education project. And let me give you one final get ready, okay? Because I haven't given you enough, one more. In addition to the Latinidad project, I also want to announce that in 2025, the HSP will also launch La Colectiva Teológica Latina, where we will gather 15 women in various stages of their careers to produce materials that will benefit seminarians, pastors, and teachers in and out of the academy. We want with this project to empower the experience and wisdom of Latinas, and 40% of the money donated to this anniversary will be used to fund this project. So muchas gracias to all of you who donated, and if you want to donate to La Colectiva and have not done so, please visit the HSP website. Stay in touch with us. We're doing exciting things together. Let us know how you're doing. I'm always interested. I read your emails. I'll write back. Let me know how you're doing. If you're going to finish the program in a week, think about joining the Hispanic Alumni Network. There's another wonderful group. And to all of the schools who are present here tonight, there's quite a number of schools present. Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias. Thank you for your support through the years. Thank you for believing in the Hispanic Scholars Program. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And now, es tiempo de comer, de hablar, de relajarse. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Cada día, cada día. I remember I told you that around the convocation, everybody loves to poop, that's why they invited me. Or we want to make an announcement about tomorrow. Tomorrow is our big day in Esperanza. We've got a play, we've got reception, we have a, take us a momentito, man. And I want to make sure that you get there and you join us tomorrow. All right? I want to say one thing. Being the director of the HSD means a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of worry. But when I come here and I see you, it's all worth it. Muchas gracias.
Another round of applause for our amazing director. Thank you all for being here, truly. So, just brief announcements. For those students who are here, the band will be leaving from here tomorrow, from Friar Hall specifically, at 11:30. 11:30. You will be, yes, that's the bus. Sorry, bus, yes, it is.